Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all the ships at sea, we are live once again, democracyradionetwork.com. I'm your somewhat savvy, politically minded host, Abby Kaufman, and I want to play us in with a little Otis Redding today, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Tell the truth. Yeah, tell the truth. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Guys, well, kind of, I could listen to that all day, but I won't. I won't bore you with that. But that's Otis Redding doing a song called "Tell the Truth." And today's programs will be a little different because I've got a one topic I want to address right off the bat, and it may take a while. So, and of course, it has to do with truth. And everybody is aware of Trump going to China and meeting with President Xi and all that, right? Uh, and what prompted this was a toast that Donald Trump made to President Xi at the state dinner. And in this toast, he goes on to call President Xi a great leader. And then he ends the toast with, and I always tell the truth. I mean, you would have thought it was a punchline, right? And Donald Trump tell the truth. You know, he's got a very tangential hold on the truth and absolutely no grasp on reality at all. So Trump says, I always tell the truth. Uh, and I think we kind of know, the contours of that. But I tell you what I did. I went back to the beginning, and there's a word etymology, and what it means is word origins. And so I went and looked up the origin of the word credible. And it just so happens that credible originated in the late 14th century, which would be the late 1300s. Late 1300s, 600 years ago plus, okay? And it was derived from the Latin credibilis, which means worthy to be believed. And of course, that has other roots from credere, to believe or trust. And it entered the English language via Middle French, and it's pretty likely related to the roots of credit and credence and that sort of thing. And now that you know what it is, let's focus on why it's important. And credibility matters because it builds trust. It enables influence to be cast, and it ensures that communications are believed and acted upon. As a fundamental, it is a foundational element of leadership and reputation that fosters engagement and reduces workplace chaos and strengthens professional relationships. Without credibility, it is difficult to persuade, lead, or gain confidence. And of course, that bears repeating. Without credibility, it is difficult to persuade, lead, or gain confidences. And you know why? Because people don't believe you. Okay. And let's see, let's go into what really what it does. We know just from existence that telling the truth establishes trust and confidence. When you know you can believe someone, when you know you can take somebody's word, you have trust in them and you have confidence in their word. If somebody says this is the best price I can do, it's the best they can do. guys, it's just foundational. I mean, go back to you can go back to George Washington, even though he was a little after the 14th century. But George Washington, I cannot tell a lie. I did chop down the cherry tree. Honest Abe. I mean, I'm not really sure how he got that nickname, but you can rest assured if he didn't deserve to be called Honest Abe, he wouldn't be called Honest Abe for 200 years. Okay. Um, and we know that it establishes trust and confidence when you can take somebody's word. And you remember that old expression, a man's word is his bond? Well, some people's words aren't worth a plug nickel. And I will cite you some examples of that later on. But at this point, we all know that it's about the ability to believe what someone says is true and credible. And we know that it establishes leadership and influence because if you're known as somebody who tells the truth, you're well positioned to be a leader at work or period. Because you're dealing in fact-based reality. All this helps. And let's see what's next. Oh, it improves the organizational performance because if you've got a boss you can believe, you're going to follow them. And if you've got a really strong boss you believe in who tells the truth, there's not going to be a whole lot of conflict. There's not going to be an employee turnover because those sorts of things are part of credibility. And let's look at the converse. What happens if you don't have credibility? Well, then I think you get disengagement and cynicism, which I think we can see that creeping in now. And it it ensures that the audience trusts your speaker. It gives your professional career another stepping stone. That that when you speak on a subject, you are an authority on that subject. There is no doubt. Okay. And when you do that, it's just critical to be believed. And it ensures credibility, ensures accuracy in research. And what if somebody fudged the numbers, like a certain president has been known to do? If you fudge the numbers, by definition, that's inaccurate. And it's inaccurate in his favor. So why did he say it? Because it's in his favor. Inaccuracy be damned. He didn't care. Okay. And the last reason it's really important is that it facilitates success in every way. I mean, if you're not credible, it's doubtful that you'll reach your personal or professional goals because people can't take your word. They can't believe what you're out to do relative to your personal and professional goals. They will not believe you. And this is kind of an academic thing, but it's so important. And credibility, the ability to be believed, is built on competence, character, and consistency. And when you have character, consistency, and competence, what you have is a situation where your actions line up with your words. So not only are your words truthful, but your actions reinforce that. And to be a true leader, people will love you. We've gone a long way from the my way, the highway approach, but the Republicans keep seeming to bring it back. So anyway, with all that in mind, that's what credibility is. And I think we all know what my next question would be. And I asked AI, Gemini, just this straight, objective question. Is Donald Trump a credible person? That's not a loaded question in any way. What's his reputation for credibility? And just to show you, I went and researched this as an attorney would. I'll give you the position for and the position against. And actually, I'll give you the position against Donald Trump having credibility first. Because this is kind of black and white here. So it starts out by saying the public perception of Trump's credibility as president is deeply polarized, but the majority of Americans, I think it's 60% or so, the majority of Americans think he's dishonest. Okay? Think about that. The majority of Americans think the president's a crook. And I haven't heard that sort of language since Richard Nixon. And the scale of the criminality and corruption going on it doesn't hold a candle. What Nixon did is so relatively insignificant compared to this. So we know that, number one, the majority of Americans already think he's dishonest. And why do they think he's dishonest? Well, there's only two ways, really: his words and his actions. Do they match up? He says, I'm going to release the Epstein files. Did he? I'm going to turn over my tax returns as soon as blah, blah, blah. Did he? He said, I'm going to see whether it was an American Tomahawk that bombed the girls' school in Iran. Did he? And now you can see how every little thing Trump says has some distortion to it. And the reason it has distortion to it is because he does not deal in the real world that you and I and everybody else lives in. Okay? When people are telling you you're great and infallible and, what's that thing? Trump was right about everything. It kind of looks to me as though Trump's kind of wrong about everything. I mean, the economy, and God knows his foreign leadership has just been horrendous. I mean, from alienating NATO and alienating Europe. How about pissing off Greenland over Norway over Greenland? Or how about the Canadian fight that he picked? Or any of the tariff wars that he picked? He might have told you he was going to do it, but he didn't have the authority to do it. And nobody around him had the balls to tell him, don't do that. And I'm going to kind of fast forward just a second here. And I'm sure at this point everybody's heard about the lawsuit against the IRS for disclosing his tax returns in, what was that, 2020 or something? And Trump is suing for what, $100 billion? Or is it the 10 or 100? Let's say 10. He was suing for $10 billion for damages caused because when his returns were leaked, it showed he only paid $750 in taxes. Billionaire pays $750. Any given moron pays more than that. So again, so he's getting, he's apparently been advised to settle the case since he is the overseer of the IRS and the Department of Justice. And so one side, let's say Justice says, IRS, we're willing to settle this for $10 billion. And what's the IRS say? IRS is Donald Trump's IRS. And it says, yeah, I think I'll take that 10 bill. And instantly he just swindled the government. He didn't swindle the government. He swindled the taxpayers if he were to do that. Now, I will give you an example that's a little pushing closer to to screwing the taxpayers. And this, again, directly reflects upon credibility. When the subject of the necessity, the utter necessity of having a ballroom came up, and apparently it's so important that he had to knock down the east wing in the middle of the night to make room for it, right? But anyway, you got this ballroom that he wants. And we all know Trump's a child, and we all know he obsesses with, things like that, as well as peeing on everything so he can market his territory. So anyway, when he did that, he had no. So he says, "Geez, I'm going to privately fund it. It won't cost the taxpayers a dime." So he goes, "Well, I really don't like it, but if it's privately paid for, at least there's a chance." So the original price tag he hits people up for is $200 million. And eventually it becomes $400 million. And so he's got a cool $400 million that's been donated for this express purpose, right? It's been donated so he can build his ballroom. And then a couple months later, what happens? Some Republicans go, maybe we ought to pay for that. Maybe Trump's right. Maybe that ballroom has a security function, and maybe we should pay for it. So somebody slips in something about that Trump now wants $1 billion for the ballroom. So not only is the price doubled and tripled, but he's in position to keep the $400 million in donations and stick the public for 2.5 times that price. Okay. Now I'm going to ask you if that strikes you as somebody that's honest and believable. Okay, I think that's an overwhelming answer to that one. And that's just the beginning. Oh, sorry, I'm still giving you the arguments against, and that was just the first part. And and the biggest reason against Donald Trump being credible, the biggest reason to find Trump as a liar is he's got a track record. And Jim did it pretty nicely. They put something like track record of falsehoods. I don't really know the difference between a falsehood and a lie. And I think we just ought to kind of cut to the chase and start using the word lie because it's appropriate. It accurately describes the situation. Okay, so he's got, at least according to the Washington Post, 30,573 false or misleading claims. Doesn't that strike you as a lot? 30,000 in 4 years? What's that, like 20 a day? I mean, the guy he's proven it. If you were in a court of law and you wanted to impeach somebody's credibility, if you want to call them a liar on the witness stand, this is how you do it. The witness says something like, "Oh, I always tell the truth." Sound familiar? Like Trump did in the Xi toast. "I always tell the truth." And you go, "Well, sir, the Washington Post has a record of 30,573 falsehoods or lies from your first term. "Oh, I'm sure the data's inaccurate." No, data's perfectly accurate. You're just not happy about it. So, you've got a track record. People know you. You can't, I can't stress this enough. You have a track record of dishonesty. And you can't just flip it off and on like a light. You can't be honest here and dishonest here. You could, but if there's one thing Trump has shown is that he does not have any nuance. He can't do anything just a little bit, which is why, and I'll pick on this real quick too, as far as a lie, the reflecting pool makeover was on track for $1 million. Okay, $1 million. That's, been perfectly fine before, but it's $1 million. So then people go, no, you can't do this. So then what's he do? He says, F you, and he yanks the contract, reissues it as a no bid contract to the same contractor. But this time, instead of $1 million, it's $13 million no bid contract. Does that sound like someone who's dealing with you above board? Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't put up with this in any other way. And I don't think it ought to be put up with now, especially with the stakes being, the United States. And I'll go into really a bit more about this in a few minutes. But, some of his, he's also got these perceptions of opportunism. And it looks like his supporters equate his strong-willed authoritarian communication style with leadership and trusting his ability to keep campaign promises like immigration. And we both know that was a lie too. We're going after the worst of the worst. Well, geez, I didn't know that 8-year-old girl was one of the worst of the worst. Had no idea. She's 8 years old. How would I know? How would you know? And that hits home because they don't know. They make statements based on fiction, which makes the statement fictional. And we know what that is. Fictional is kind of like the equivalent of a Southern colloquialism called bull skating. And you don't want, bull skating is something you really shouldn't do. Okay, so anyway, let's explore the arguments for Trump having credibility. And let's say, his supporters generally view him as credible. And their reasoning is because he says what others think and breaks away from traditional scripted political speech. So they're confusing what they want to hear with credibility. And they're confusing the messenger with a credible messenger, which, we've kind of spoken to that issue. And let's say his supporters might trust him because they believe his data and not the objective data. Well, that's clearly not grounded in reality either. But, people are entitled to do that. And the last argument that was made in favor of Trump being a credible person is this perception of decisiveness. I think it was Bill Clinton who said people will vote for somebody who's wrong and strong than weak and right, or something like that. So you can see the whole thing's just, a house of cards or a Ponzi scheme or pyramid, whatever it is. I mean, okay, so let's look at this. So I just gave you the proposition, and the proposition was, is Donald Trump a credible person? And you can answer that. Yes, he is. No, he isn't. It's an objective question. Is Donald Trump a credible person? Does he have credibility? Can he be believed? I've given you the arguments why he should be believed. And I've given you the reasons why he should not be believed. And while we both know that most stories do have two sides, we also know they're not equal sides. If you're in the courtroom and you're a juror in a criminal trial, you will be faced with judging whose testimony to believe. Do you believe the person that says you ran the light and you had a blue car? Or do you believe the guy that says, never saw it before in my life? And and let me give you a little more concrete example of this because I love telling the story. My favorite example of a juror's weighing credibility was in the Stormy Daniels case with Donald Trump. And this was about the time that Trump had a little fling with Stormy at a golf tournament, maybe in Lake Tahoe. And this was like right around the time Banner was born or something, just to show you the complete alley cat morals that he has. So anyway, he takes his what was I going to say? Credibility. Oh, wrong and strong and all that stuff. And so, again, you've got Trump saying, how about this? Iran's willing to surrender. Iran says, "What? I don't think we said that. Who do you believe?" And the ballroom, who do you believe? So, and I say it's obvious that he's intent on keeping that $400 million donation in donations, and he's equally intent on sticking the public, the taxpayer, with $1 billion plus bill, because God knows if it's Trump, it's the best of the best, and money is no object, unless it's for you or me. See, if Trump does it, it's okay. If anybody else does it, it's the ultimate wrong. And you can't lead a country like that. And I think Trump might be starting to realize the game is up. People see right through him. He is not what he thinks he is. And, it's so funny. That's, President Xi is, I think, 72 and Trump is 79. And there's just no, Trump's just out of his league with somebody like this. Don't forget, Xi is in this for the long haul. And Trump's got to do stuff quickly because he'll be gone soon. And he knows it. Time is not on his side. And guess what? Time is exactly on China's side. Time is exactly on Iran's side. You see, at this point, President Xi looks at America as a superpower in decline. And the longer he sits back and lets Donald Trump do this, the greater the decline. So they win. Iran sees that too. They don't, bomb away, pal. We ain't going anywhere. Right? And we've got all these fast little boats that you can't even begin to keep up with. Get one of those like drug cigarette boats or something that do 80 miles an hour. And equip it as a drone. Send the unmanned boat packed with explosives into the destroyer. See what that does for the strait. And don't forget, Iran's got in a really good position here. They don't have to hit every ship. They don't even have to hit a lot of ships. All they have to do is hit a few ships to make the insurance market unstable, because you can't dock a boat or a container ship, I guess. You can't dock a container ship in a port without having insurance. And insurance in the Strait of Hormuz right now is pretty fucking expensive, right? And, at some point it becomes unaffordable, much like gasoline. And, while we're really lucky here in the States, we can buy gasoline. It might be expensive, but we can buy it. But what about the smaller Asian countries? For their cost to go up by 30% is almost a death warrant as far as business. So anyway, it's just credibility is just so vitally important. And I'm gonna take this to the local level. And I think or everybody, I think people know which ones of their representatives, whether they're city council, state assembly, state senate, governor's race, congressman. I think at a certain point, people kind of know who's both skating and who's not. And Trump's been in this for a long time. And I talked about how your actions line up with words. Does anybody remember the words Biden crime family? I'll say it again. It's because it's kind of funny. Does anybody remember the phrase Biden crime family? Well, if you do, and I'm pretty sure most of us do, you have to laugh when you look at the corruption in the Trump White House, which is perfectly legitimate because it's President Trump. See, he's inconsistent deliberately, and he wonders why people don't believe him. You can't. It's your actions, it's your words, it's your everything, and and let's face it, you never really had any credibility to begin with. And remember, I talked a second ago about the jury having to listen to two sides and see whether the guy who done it, right? Well, I see my Trump version of that. I love telling a story. Good old Stormy at the Lake Tahoe golf tournament, not long after Barron gives birth. So Trump's in the old hotel room. I say motel room. I don't think it was a motel room. I think that Trump and Stormy in the old hotel room, and they're boinking and doing all this stuff. So later on at trial, the attorney's going to ask about this tryst, this dalliance, this whatever you want to call it. So Stormy gets on the stand, promise to tell the truth, the whole truth. So help you God, I do, and God bless you, Stormy. So Ms. Daniels, let me ask you. Do you recall what color underwear the defendant wore? And she says, I'm like, yeah, they were red boxers. Okay, red boxers. So then the attorney checks off red boxers. And then he says, well, tell me, do you remember his penis? Stormy goes, yeah. And so did that have any unique characteristics or funny shape or something? And Stormy goes, yeah, as a matter of fact, it did, and describes them the penile imperfection. And this is driving Trump nuts right there, right? So then the question becomes, well, how was the defendant's performance in bed? And it's, nothing right home about it. I thought it was kind of lousy, all that stuff. So Stormy has answered the questions. What color was his to corroborate or to verify her story as to what happened that night in that hotel room? The attorney solicits that Trump had red or blue underwear, whatever it is. And then he has a funny shaped penis, and they want him particularly good in the sack. So Donald Trump has to get on the stand and give his side of the story. So he's got to deny these three things, or four. He's got to deny he was there. And he's going to deny that even if he was there, he didn't have the underwear on. That even if he was there and didn't have the underwear on, he did not show her his penis. And that even if he was there and showed his penis and all that, that he was an excellent performer in bed. So those were kind of his options. There's one extreme option that we've all seen and heard, and it all makes us all laugh. And that's when you've got somebody just dead to rights, blue underwear, funny shaped penis, lousy performance in bed. And what does Trump say in front of the judge? I never saw her before in my life. And I'm sure the courtroom's like bursting out laughing, right? So here's the issue of credibility squarely before you. Who do you believe? Do you believe Stormy Daniels, who described the encounter and physical characteristics that no one could know without seeing Trump naked? You see what I mean? He's a damaged human being who's dangerous enough to have convinced enough people to vote for him and give him the presidency again. Otherwise, we all know he'd be in jail. And after this term, he may still go to jail. I mean, the $10 million settlement is nothing but embezzlement, cheating, whatever you want to call it. And it's funny, after a while, it's not even stealing, it's embezzlement, right? That's when you got a whole lot of money. It's embezzlement. You just rob somebody 20, $30. That's just robbery, stealing. But when you talk about that kind of money, that's pretty brazen. Okay. So with that in mind, you've heard about credibility and the arguments for and against and all that. And now I want to jump right to the New York Times today because, and I wasn't going to do this. I thought I would just not improvise, but share my my thoughts on credibility as we go in to the primaries here and the generals in November. And so here's the headline in the New York Times. In Xi-Trump relationship, flattery cloaks mistrust. So, Xi knows. Believe me, Xi is a world-class negotiator. And Trump is such an idiot, he fired all the professional negotiators. I think the sum total of U.S. foreign negotiating team is Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, president's son-in-law and real estate guy. Where did they get their knowledge of the subject matter? Because you remember, we said to be credible, you have to know what you're talking about. People have to recognize that you know what you're talking about. Okay, and here you've got, of course, Xi flattering the living daylights out of Trump, which is all you need. I mean, he'll give you the nuclear codes. Judging from the Epstein files and all that, he would give Xi the nuclear codes for a 13-year-old girl and the ability to stop the Iran war. I mean, what wouldn't he do? So don't forget, he's a real short-term minded guy. I mean, as long as things keep going, China's winning, Iran's winning, and we're losing. And it's not like we're getting beat. We're losing. Getting beat is what another team does to you. Getting beat is what you do to your own team. And, I say on the front page of the New York Times, talks about how flattery hides mistrust. And mistrust is another word for a lack of credibility. And I'm going to hammer this really hard because I want you to take a look at every politician who's on the ballot, on your particular ballot. I don't care whether it's city council, and I don't care if it's United States Senate. Look at the two people, or after the primaries, it'll be two people, and just ask yourself, who do I believe? Who do I believe is telling the truth? Who is more likely to be telling the truth? How do I find out if they're telling the truth? Well, I say you can do it a few different ways. You can, do like independent research, or you can ask AI, and you can double check the AI results, or you can tell AI, you better be right about this. Go ahead and double check now. And AI will do it. It knows it's made mistakes in the past and, gets called out all the time. And you know what? Talk about calls. I have been really negligent and not asking anyone to give us a call at 949-629-3820 and share your thoughts on this really important subject. Do you think Trump's credible? If so, why? I mean, I kind of know the why nots. I just want to know how or why people continue to believe him. And I just, for the life of me, I cannot come up with a good answer. I just can't. And guys, I'm going to have to ask you for just a little break. I'm going to go to the call and get some decongestant, so septic I'm starting to run. My nose is starting to run. I'm starting to get a little postnasal drip. Hang on, I'll be right back. All right, there, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry about that. We just had to go grab some of these nasal pills, and now I'm going to swallow them right in front of you. And for whatever reason, 3 is the number of the count, and the number of the count shall be 3. Can't wait till those kick in. So yeah, that was the headline of the New York Times today. Flattery cloaks mistrust. And you know what he went there for? He went there to try to get a little help with Iran, a little help with the trade deals, and you know what? Trump's going to make a deal, and she doesn't. Time is on everybody else's side. Time is not on Trump's side at all. I mean, he's the guy who wants like the quick fix, the quick hit, the quick win, which was, and he had assumed that because things went well and he was able to snatch Maduro from Venezuela, that he'd just go in and bomb Iran and, be in and out in a couple of days. Well, yeah, it's funny. The Iranians didn't really, think that was a good plan. Go ahead and do it, and I'll try it. And it's like the story Joe Scarborough tells about Vietnam. And during negotiations, the Americans say, we have won every battle. And the Vietnamese guy says, yes, you have. And it is completely irrelevant. We are still here. Now, when that happens, I think Trump could explode. I mean, he's playing every end against the middle, and there is no middle because he has no moral center. Matter if he's got any morals at all. They don't involve lying, cheating, stealing, adultery, or any of that stuff. So, but I'm always anxious to hear people defend him because I'm sincerely interested in hearing both sides of the story, so I can make a decision. I can't really decide without knowing both sides. I mean, can you imagine having to call heads or tails on a coin and not knowing those were the only two choices. So, okay. So we got G and the mistrust and all that. Some of the other opinions, and these were major opinions in the New York Times editorial today. China planning for a final victory over the U.S. All right. Xi sees us within sight. He sees America as that he can win. And how does he win? Well, he wins by doing nothing. He wins by letting Donald Trump hang his country and hang 340 million Americans out to dry. That's what Xi's going to do. He's going to let Trump do the dirty work. And why? Because Trump's too stupid to figure it out. And I want to go back to that $10 billion IRS settlement. There's an old kind of legal thing where an attorney comes in and tells his client he can't do whatever it is. And the client goes, God damn it, I don't need a lawyer to tell me what I can't do. I need a lawyer to tell me how I can do it. Okay? So that's what Trump has. He has lawyers telling him how he can get the $10 billion settlement, but nobody's telling him that's highly illegal. It's a shakedown. It's impeachable. It's just, just because you structure like this, you're still paying yourself $10 billion from the Treasury. Okay? And if that ain't stealing, I'd kind of like to know about it. I'm damn curious about that one. Okay, so we got and then on that same New York Times editorial, Thomas Friedman, and I always read Friedman. He's got so much more experience and insight than I do that I automatically believe just about everything he says. And Friedman's editorial was called "NATO, Please Help. Trump has no strategy in Iran." And Friedman realizes what's going on. He knows that as time goes on, China wins and America loses. And his thought is, guys, this has gone on far enough to NATO. We've got a shitty president. He has maligned you at every turn. We could not apologize anymore if we tried. But here's the deal. We've got to get the strait open and keep it open, or else it's going to be economic pain for all of us for a very long time. And one of the quickest things we can do is get this behind us. Let's show the world that the strait is open and free to pass. And it's going to take NATO and NATO ships to do this. Will NATO step up? I see it as 50-50. I'd like to think they would, but I can also imagine there will be hell to pay in their countries over this. But that's Friedman's considered opinion. And Friedman's, I think he justifiably can call himself a Middle Eastern expert. He may disagree with the title, but I think he's got the knowledge and experience to qualify as one. See, so can you get NATO to unring the bell, to unhear the degradation that the U.S. Exercised? Can NATO put it behind them for the good of the world? I mean, I bet they can. I just don't know if they will. And I couldn't blame them either way. Friedman was a little harder about that. And, his position is, guys, no matter what, we have to do this. We've got to keep the strait open, or else we'll have permanently high prices. Stuff will always be in short supply. There's 100 something boats that need to get out of the strait now. And I'm not talking like, 20-foot sailboats. These things are container ships that are hundreds, or tankers that are hundreds of feet long. Uh, I mean, I hate to use expressions like "screwed the pooch," but it's kind of what it feels like. And so, Friedman, how do you guys feel about that? I mean, clearly NATO would be a help. Do you think they should? Do you think they will? Give us a call, 949-629-3820. And, do you think, how about this? Is Thomas Friedman a credible person? Is J.D. Vance a credible person? You see what I mean? It just hits differently when it's a MAGA or Republican involved here. The inconsistencies are going to kill those guys. It can't be great if it's my guy and throw him in jail if it's your guy for the same actions. And all this weaponization stuff is just a crock. I mean, the truth of the matter is Trump has been an extremely negative chapter in American history. He may be considered a transformational president. I kind of begin to wonder whether, he hadn't put the digitization of the population, if he hadn't really accelerated that. He's the way he runs everything out of like a cigar box lunch money thing with, oh, I'm going to withhold this, I'm going to give you this money. And presidents don't do that. That's not within their sphere. However, Trump wants to control everything, which is a mental disease in and of itself. And ultimately, don't you feel sorry for people that are mentally ill? Don't you wish they get treatment? Or at the very least, don't you wish they were locked up in an asylum? You know what? We can't lock them up in the asylums anymore. Gosh, I almost forgot. Ronald Reagan emptied the mental institutions and closed them. And let's not forget, just to show you how Reagan is deceptively brilliant, is after he closed the mental hospital and says no more involuntary holdings, but he goes ahead and cuts the Section 8 housing subsidies. So you've got homeless mental hospitals opened on the street, and at the same time, a decrease in the Section 8 housing subsidy. So let's see. If there were a boatload of mentally ill people, and they were in mental hospitals and were being taken care of more or less to some degree, what happens if you just throw them on the street? Well, it looks to me as though that could be, and it is rightfully considered, the root cause of homelessness. I mean, everybody sees what a problem that is today. And why is it a problem today? Because another Republican hated big government. Reagan had this thing about the worst words anybody can hear is, I'm from the government, I'm here to help. Well, I'm going to tell you, that was never my experience. I always found government employees really helpful. I mean, I don't know what his deal is. But let's see what else we want to cover today. The time is flying. We're having fun. Let's see. Energy chip. Oh, and just to drive the point home, now in the business section, New York Times business section, on the front page, okay, Beijing views Trump's America as a sinking empire. Okay. And I'm going to tell you, it sure does feel like we're a sinking empire. I see absolutely no progress being made. I only see negativity and a return to the past and a deliberate hard right turn into authoritarianism and fascism and all that. You know, that thing about if you uh, if you don't know the mistakes of the past, you're doomed to repeat them. I mean, again, what does Trump know? I mean, you would have to assume not very much, right? I mean, the guy's a true idiot. And by the way, I'm talking about Trump here. Guys, what's a guy to do? Well, I think we have to keep in mind that when we deal with people, credibility is, was, and will be a problem. Can I believe you? And not just a baseline question. Can I believe you? And well, maybe you can, maybe you can't. And guys, can you believe it's closing in on 1 o'clock? And I haven't asked you to give us a call at 949-629-3820. And let's say share your thoughts, opinions, or if you just want to vent for a while, go do it. Let's say call us. We'll be here for a while. And let's see, what else did we want to mention to you? Oh, we are just we're so grateful to have a little free time around lunchtime to talk about this. And if you remember, I started the show playing in with a little Otis Redding, Tell the Truth. And isn't that just an amazingly simple concept? Telling the truth. And it's almost like deception is easy. But no, deception is really difficult because there are people always looking and always watching. And we just don't want to have that happen. And listen, let me take a slight detour. Earlier, the market was up hundreds of points. And if I were to tell you I knew why, I'd be lying. Uh, the stock market is just completely divorced from reality. There is no reason for any of these massive moves. 500 points, 300 points. There's no real need for that sort of volatility. And let's only hope that people are able to put this to bed and make America affordable again. I had to get a new battery for my car. It's almost $300. Years ago you wouldn't spend more than 100. I'll go on and on, but there's not a whole lot of things you can replace gasoline with. If you need to tank gas to get to work for a week, then half tank gas ain't gonna do it, is it? So against everything else, the pressure on rising prices is inevitable. I mean, things just have to cost more. And like I said, we just hope this gets heard fairly quickly. So anyway, I just thought that was very much worth a detour. So, and if anybody with a decent upbringing knows what the difference is between telling the truth and telling a lie. And sometimes the difference ain't much. But that's when the credible the part when you come in and want to know if someone's credible or not. Just about the only thing you can do is look to the past. Has he been credible in the past? And if so, give him everything he wants. Yeah, I tried to hit that old coffee a little early today, and I almost wish I hadn't. But you know what? It is coming up on 1 p.m., and we've been at this for an hour. Can you believe it? Give us a call, 949-629-3820, and share your thoughts about this, or give us your opinion. Or if you just want to vent, go ahead and vent. Or I'll give you this option. Go to the website, democracyradionetwork.com, and you will see the PayPal donate button. And then if you scroll down a little bit below that, you will see the live stream button. And clicking on the PayPal donate button, oh, you know what? I'm not gonna ask you to click on the PayPal donate button. I'm not gonna ask you to smash the 11 day donate button. I'm not gonna ask you to give it a love tap donate button. What I'm gonna ask you to do, and in no uncertain terms, I'm gonna ask you to smash the living daylights out of that donate button and give us a considered donation, and that way old Ab can get some car work done. How about that? I entertain, you help with my car. This seems like a good deal. Yeah. Okay. Now let's go down to the kind of local races. There's 34, 38 cities in Orange County, and 30 cities in Orange County. So that means there's going to be a lot of local, like city council races and supervisor races and things like that. And I want you to start paying attention to these things, because those really do hit home, and those guys determine, if your park is clean or dirty. Does it have adequate protection and all that? And whether it does or not, it's always a money thing. I'll tell you what, let's take Karen Bass, mayor of LA. Do you think she's got credibility? Well, I think she's got some. I don't think she's perfectly credible, but I think she's relatively credible. And that right there forces you into a compromise decision. Well, even with all that, who do I vote for? And I've kind of, I resolve all these things individually, and I'm happy to share with you how I determine who I'm going to vote for. But a lot of times it comes down to endorsements. Whose endorsement did you get? And when I see someone like Ada Briseno get, such huge support from everybody, from the new immigrant to the established union leaders, Ada's she's got credibility. She's done it. So, and you know what else? Because I think Ada is a real force of nature, and the reason I think that, God, this is horrible. The reason I think Ada is such a force of nature is her history, her track record. Uh, she gets things done. And I want to take just a second here to give you my thought on women versus men in some major kind of gross generalization way. As a general proposition, I will never ever bet against a woman, which is like saying I will always bet on a woman. And that begs the question, well, why would you always bet on a woman? And my answer is, women are expected to pass a human being through an opening roughly the size of a pea or a straw, right? I mean, that's conceptually how it works. Okay. But a guy, I mean a regular old guy, if he gets a hangnail, I don't mean a terminal hangnail, I don't mean a stage 4 hangnail, I don't mean a compound fracture hangnail, I mean a hangnail. So if a guy gets a hangnail, somehow or other, it's like 3 specialists and at some point a ride in the ambulance. Now, in that situation, who do you think is more likely to get things done? And now you know why I always bet on women. It's just, I just think they're much, I think they're much less likely to take an easy way out as opposed to a guy. But just a little bit of kind of background stuff about thought I'd share. Uh, and you know what? As it give us and for those of you that are kind of wondering where we are, and when somebody asks me where I am, I'm like, well, man's been pondering that question for centuries. I'm not really sure. Uh, well, if somebody asks me where I am and where I broadcast from, as you can see, there's some boat stuff and a globe in the background. But I am broadcasting from my semi-secret location on Newport Harbor in Newport Beach, California. And the reason I do that is I don't want to drive very far. I kill me. Okay, we got the old thing that laptop charging. So yeah, we think about this. In the New York Times, the unofficial newspaper to the world, and even the Financial Times, the front page consisted of Trump lying or the mistrust around him. And guys, I say this is gonna, first we have to make it to 2026 and see what we can do there. If we don't win any of the legislative branch, we're really screwed. And I don't want to sound overly simplistic, but in the United States, power comes from the people, and power is designated or delegated by voting. So at the very least, I really want everybody to take this seriously and get your vote in early. Don't wait to see what dirty tricks Trump has up his sleeve for election day. The guy's just a weasel, and he's an untrustworthy weasel. I don't guess you can ever have a trustworthy weasel, but an untrustworthy weasel is like the worst of every possible situation. And what we say to that? Thanks, Donald. I tell you something else would be really, really cool to see. We all know Trump thinks he's the brightest and best at everything, right? Right? Yeah. So here's what I would like to see. And Donald Trump is free to pick the topic. I want him to challenge Gavin Newsom to a debate. I don't care what the topic is. I don't even care what side of the debate you're on. I just want to hear those two go at it. And what you'll find is a 79-year-old man with severe cognitive decline whose cognitive decline is so great, he doesn't know there's cognitive decline. He thinks everything's hunky-dory, and it's not. And another reason he thinks things are hunky-dory is because that's all he's told. There should be at least one person that would tell the president, you can do this, but it's a really bad idea relative to the $10 billion IRS settlement. I mean, shouldn't there be like one adult in the room? So this is completely unadvisable. But my larger point is that when we start measuring our words, hasn't Trump already won? If we start to really care about every word we say, Trump has won. He's chilled our free speech rights. We are now scared of crossing a line. And, I say Trump only operates from a position of ignorance, which is why he's so anxious to throw the book at people whom you can't throw the book at because there is no underlying evidence. And I kind of went off about evidence the other day. There was someone at the gym. Someone was telling me about something about how some Chinese women had voted illegally in such and such an election. And my first thought was, that's bullshit. Oh, sorry, slipped out like that. And what was even worse was I said that to the woman that said this. And I'm like, can you prove this? Is this true? Can you prove it? Well, no, but that's what my great aunt told me, and I'm sure she got the story right. I'm like, well, I'm sure you got the story right. I just don't know if the story's true. Which is a really awkward thing to do. I would suggest, based on personal experience, that if you ever have the opportunity to tell a woman to prove it, don't do that. Please don't do that. Trust me. Do not ask that question. So, guys, how do you see this Iran thing ending? Do you think NATO steps up? I'm going to tell you, it would not surprise me if they did, only because I'm sure they have read Friedman's article today. And let's see, if you read Friedman's article, you would have to favor his side of the argument. Because I said there's always two sides. The problem is they're not always equal. If things were always equal, you'd have an equal number of people going to jail and getting let off. But the truth of the matter is more people go to jail than get let off. And there's other reasons for that. But the mere fact that they exist is something to exercise a little fear over. I mean, and I read about it in the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Somebody wrote a Melania joke, but they left it out of the show because Jimmy Kimmel got so hassled with the jokes he told on ABC. Like I said, when we start wavering like that, we've lost and Trump's won. And that guy should not be allowed to win a thing. I mean, like I said, the guy couldn't even operate. He's banned from operating a charity in New York because he bought his own picture with it, with the money in the charity. I mean, the guy's just a weasel. There's no real other way to put it. Only a weasel. Oh, maybe there's a song title of that. Only a weasel. He's only a weasel. He drove up in his diesel. You look like a weasel. We could do this forever. But my point is to get you to start paying attention to this. I mean, we've really got to step up and be ready. We have to support people like Ada Bersenio. And every day I want to point out to people that the Trump people have allocated $3 million to defeat Ada Bersenio from state assembly. Can you imagine? And I'm sure you're curious as to why would they spend $3 million to stop Ada Bersenio from being elected to the state assembly? Well, I think they might spend $3 million to keep Ada Bersenio from being elected to the assembly because they know how effective a leader she is, what a good communicator and leader she is, how tough she's proven herself to be. I mean, trust me, you just don't jump in the ring with Ada Bersenio, former head of the Democratic Party of Orange County. She's a real powerhouse. And so she was, to me, she's a great American success story. Came here as a child with her parents from Nicaragua. Eventually got a job at a hotel. Started the union in the hotel. Became the union president. And just expanded from there. And Ada is the most unselfish person I have ever met. I mean, she really does exist to serve her constituents. And not only does she serve them, she serves to protect them. Because there are people in the community that, that have a tendency to prey on others. And that's not cool. But let me play this little thing from Ada so you get the general idea. Here it is.
So I got this in my mailbox yesterday, and I thought, that's interesting. I don't remember ever sitting on a gold couch wearing a shiny gold jacket. And then I realized that they photoshopped me. This picture, and honestly, it's very flattering that they would Photoshop me hanging out in such a cool, trendy place. And who are the masterminds who came up with this message? Well, I have an answer. According to the documents that came out yesterday, it's the pollsters for the NRA, the Republican National Committee, and Devin Nunes. And that is the best they can do. Unfortunately, you're going to be seeing much more of this. Donald Trump's closest allies, corporations that have given him more than 20 million, are part of a group that has already committed to spending $3 million to defeat me, because they're afraid of a union leader and a proud immigrant who will take them on and win. Many of these same corporations are attacking me, are profiting millions of dollars off of ICE contracts. So you're probably going to see me photoshopped into a whole lot of other things this election cycle. I hope they Photoshop me somewhere fun. But please remember, these are all lies, and they are funded by Donald Trump's allies.
Okay, can you believe that, guys? $3 million to defeat Ada Briseno in Assembly District 67. And, she kind of gave you the background of her success story. An immigrant leader, union leader. Ada has consistently, it's important. Let me point out here how Ada's actions and words line up. Ada has always supported the those that didn't have a voice. And does she act, when she says something like that, does she act in conformity with that? When she says she's going to speak up for those that can't, does she really? And the answer is yes, she does. Whatever Ada Briseno tells you, you can take to the bank. And, I said, think about that. These days and times, you can take Ada Briseno's word to the bank. Now, what would you take Donald Trump's word to the bank? You can see the tellers laugh when you came up. I want to make a deposit of truth on, here's my check from Donald Trump. The premise just makes you laugh. You can't, I think about the leopard and the spots and all that. Trump's been a lying, cheating weasel forever. And he was convincing enough to get you guys to vote for him, or enough of you guys. Again, I look at credibility and I ask, who has it? Who's believable? And like I said, the thing that sinks Trump is he has a track record of lying. I mean, that's a little hard to finesse, a track record of lying. And so he's, I think that's always seemed a little awkward for him to deal with. I can't wait for him to tell us how great everything was and how great everything went in China and how he had Xi in his pocket. But that's not true. Friedman knows. Reporters know. Politicians know. Everybody knows. Everybody knows you can't trust Trump. And yet he got elected. And, I said, I do this daily, but, I asked somebody, I said, what was it about, why wasn't January 6th enough to disqualify Trump from being voted to the presidency? Why wasn't that enough? And, well, I'm like, well, I kind of need evidence. Did you, okay, I tell you what, if that question is a little hard, how about this one? Let's see, what would be a good question? How credible, oh gosh, I can't think of an example right now, but you can rest assured. I say Ada's just, her words and deeds line up. She's consistent. And deep down under it all, consistency is a sign of good mental health. It may also be a sign that you're stuck in a rut, stuck in a rut, stuck in a rut. But when you think about consistency, and the ability to do the same function the same way over and over again, yeah, that's human learning. And I have this saying that I kind of made up, and the saying goes something like this: if you're lucky, you live and learn. If you're not lucky, you just live. And I think everybody kind of has some idea what that means. So let's get back to the politics. So anyway, 38 cities in Orange County, and I want to really take a look. Of course, I'm drilling down into the the local assembly races and state senate races and all that. But here at democracyradionetwork.com, we're going to drill down a little more. We're going to drill down like the city council level and look at those candidates and just see if there are any general observations we can make or take away about credibility and voting choice. The whole California gubernatorial primaries is really awkward right now with Becerra leading and Steyer and what's his name, a guy from England. I forgot his name. Anyway, that's how Steyer's looking really good for some reason, and Becerra just kind of came on. I think as people kind of realized that he's been a civil servant for a while and is a pretty credible guy. I mean, it's just funny how everything comes back to credibility. When you go to the doctor and tell them, "Oh, my stomach hurts." Well, does your stomach really hurt, or you just want some pain medication? Does your stomach really hurt, or you just kind of want a day off from school? There's all sorts of motives and motivations for taking positions. And it seems like the dominating motivation for Trump's positions are lust. It's either lust for power, lust for money, lust for women, but somewhere out there, it's a real base human desire, if you know what I mean. It definitely doesn't serve the higher order that we try to elevate ourselves to. I said, sometimes God just leaves me absolutely speechless. But you know what? I really can't afford to be speechless. That's why I need you to give us a call at 949-629-3820 and give us your thoughts. I got to yesterday, I spent $95 at the gas station, and I got 3/4 of a tank of gasoline. $95. I'm sure that not everybody can afford to make up the balance compared to what it was. But again, what's Trump gonna do? And he's gonna do whatever feels good to him, and however he can steal a dollar. I'm sorry, and see if he can steal $10 billion by suing himself and then settling. Okay, guys, we got to do this one more time. Hang on. I don't want that. That I want.
Well, it depends on the, so basically, once you have verification that you finished the class, then you'll send that to CoStar. They'll look at your record to determine what you're at, what you're doing first, what's on it. Yeah. This one is, this is the one that's necessary. Yeah. Everyone's gotta have that, and then the rest of them are nice to have. This sort of. This is, that's the course that makes you ready, the test is part of that. Take, yeah, sign up for your role, take multiple classes, and you're ready, and that's part of it. That's a requirement for basically whenever, it's like an entry level requirement, so when you apply for a job, well, you have to. Well, it's like, if you go on as far as the national accounts, they have a checklist for every license size. On the checklist, that will be on there, so you have to have the basic security. I don't know how to do that. That one's just first aid CPR class, basic firefighting. There's a personal survival techniques, which is what we teach you about what's in a life raft, and then actually the practical portion of how to get along with the emergency suits and then life jackets and life raft training. So that's all. We also offer a course what's called as an academic course, which lowers the price quite a bit. But it's extensive to 60 months. Well, you could. We do have people, so for example, like if you look at this radar observer, $1,000. We do actually see mariners who will call the registrar office at OCC and go as a student just to take the class. They don't register. It's not a free program. They just access that class with the student version, which has the price. The problem is, as I said, we put it in that academic semester. So it takes a 5-day class and it turns into either 8 weeks or 16 weeks. But people that have time are willing to wait to get certification. A lot of them actually do that. There's all that students, but it's just. It is possible. Well, it's part of the license prep or is there a class? Yeah, those are the classes that will make you ready. Yeah, I don't have personally. I don't know how to stuff in person. Do you have access directly to the instructor? Here we have access to the instructor. We live here, so if it involves emailing and or involves extra instruction.
Hey guys, we are back. Sorry about that, but when nature calls, I answer. And just as an aside from all that, that's a lot of stairs. Let me catch my breath for a second. Unbelievable. But anyway, meanwhile, back at the ranch, let's think about those city council seats. And a lot of those races are supposedly nonpartisan. So how do you know who to vote for? Well, tend to look at endorsements, and if people I respect endorse somebody, then I will endorse them also. There's some close calls, rarely. Usually at this point, people people know what side of the street you walk on, and they'll treat you accordingly. Is the way I feel about this. And what I think is that the Republicans have so sold themselves out that I'd like to think the 2026 midterms are a foregone conclusion in that the Democrats will win the House and Senate. There's things aren't, there's no reason for things to change for the better. There are no actions being undertaken to improve things. And guess what? That's exactly what she is counting on. He just wants us to kind of, die on the vine, and then he'll just kind of come in and take over without firing a shot. And that everybody's kind of take over goal to just take over without firing a shot, to take over by your opponent's incompetence rather than your brilliance. She's just letting Trump and the Republicans hang the country, and they're obliging. The latest, the $1 billion for the ballroom thing. I don't know this for a fact, but I would wager that's not going to be really well accepted when, people are having to pay, out here $7 for gasoline. When I say out here in California, I know it's cheaper elsewhere, but I also know in rural Georgia, I know it's for something a gallon. I don't know what those diesel guys are paying in Georgia. And that always cracks me up because the real Trump guys have those real big diesels and, kind of rattle along and, and they're getting they're paying $8 a gallon for diesel, more or less. I mean, it's expensive here. And, let's say, if people have some sort of room to play around with a budget, they might can allocate an extra $20 here, $30 there. But like I was just saying, I went to the gas station, went to Valero because they are top tier detergent gasoline, and I had a quarter of a tank of gas. My tank holds 18 gallons, so it's like 4.25 per 4.5 gallons per quarter tank. So I got 3/4 of a tank of gasoline and had the privilege of spending almost $95 for that. And I have some leeway. I can, gas can go up a little bit, it can go down a little bit. It really won't matter to me. But there's a lot of people that it matters to. How about carpools? How about just getting to and from work? How about commuting? I mean, I know there's, just wicked commutes throughout the country. And I know Southern California doesn't have a lock on, freeway jams. And on top of that, we're paying what's expensive gasoline prices. And then we go down to McDonald's and we find out we need a second mortgage to feed our kids. I mean, I cannot articulate a single area in which we're better off. And it all comes back to credibility and the absolute necessity of being able to assess credibility. And I guess that's what the most disappointing thing is that the Republicans just don't care. Trump has kept them in power, and therefore Trump is God, and therefore they will do whatever Trump God commands them. Like this redistricting thing. Like I said, the son of us just can't fight fair. He can't do anything that's honest. I mean, tell me why. And I will And I will quote you. I'll give you the Donald Trump quote from the G dinner. I always tell the truth. I mean, aren't you surprised that that just hadn't dropped all over the internet yet? And it might be. I probably need to check. But yeah, I always tell the truth. How hard is that for you to absorb, considering? And like I say, how did we start this conversation this afternoon? With Donald Trump's statement to President Xi at the state dinner, I always tell the truth. I mean, I would hate to tell you this. And, the truth matters. It's like the $1 billion IRS tax settlement. His attorneys ought to be telling him, Mr. President, this is too close to stealing, embezzlement, and we would advise you to not do it. And right after they would get fired, Trump would go ahead and settle the suit and take the $10 billion. It would astound me if the country put up with that, particularly in light of the hardships that the American families are going through. Somebody was talking about how the price of tin cans were going to go up, so people were going to be able to buy fewer canned fruits and vegetables. I mean, that might be kind of good. They have to have fresh stuff, but when packaging goes up, everything else goes up. And that's the cycle Trump has set in motion and has not one whit of an idea how to stop it. And again, why are we in Iran? Because of Trump's ego and wanting to be the guy who changed Iran. He didn't do it for you or I. He didn't do it so we could have cheap oil. He didn't do it for any other reason other than sheer vanity. And look where it got us. I mean, we all know he got lucky in Venezuela. Cuba's a pushover. But, you start dealing with the states and you ought to have your ducks in a row with a legal argument. Because again, you can give us both sides, but one side's usually stronger than the other. And, when they're not, you have a hung jury. But I only mention that because that's really rare. I mean, usually the judge would do anything to not get a hung jury. Sometimes I think the judges are a little insensitive as to what goes on in jury deliberations, but I'm not in a position to stop it, so I'll just kind of let that comment go and remind everybody once again to give us a call, 949-629-3820. And once again, we are at our is it secret? Yeah, I think so. We are at our our top secret location on Newport Harbor in Newport Beach, California. And I had to step outside for a minute, and the sun seemed like a crisp, cool day with a little breeze blowing, and hope everybody's doing well on this Thursday, May 14th. And Anno Domini. You remember that? Anno Domini? A long time ago, there was a need to designate history, and the way they had designated one period in particular was before Christ was one side, and then Anno Domini, in the year of our Lord, is the other. So you would have the Jews at 5000 BC, and then you'd have the Jews at 5000 BC, and then after Christ was born, you'd have the year 200 AD, the year 200 Anno Domini, and the year of our Lord. And so that's after Jesus. But now I think they do BCE, like before the Common Era, and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily as religiously tainted as it might otherwise be. And, I want to go back just a second and talk about how important it is to have a procedure to problem solve. And I think everybody would pretty much agree that the first step to solving the problem is to clearly articulate the problem. And I ask you if there's anyone in the Trump administration that is capable of that. If they are, we don't know who they are because they're really being kept quiet. I mean, with everything you do, with everybody you interact with, do I believe them? Or are they believable? I just think that's, it's beyond fascinating because if somebody, excuse me, if somebody doesn't play fair, if somebody doesn't play by the rules, it's much easier to cheat. It's not so easy to cheat when you play by the rules. So when you see, activities going on like you do in the Trump White House, you just call it for what it is, blatant corruption. Oh, and another thing. We all know about the 250 year anniversary of the Army of the country this coming up this summer. That coincidentally has something to do with Trump's birthday. And to honor the 250 years of America, Trump wants to issue 250 pardons. Now, being the not so bright guy that I am, I'm thinking that 250 pardons at $1 million a pardon should be $250 million. And if it is, and if that's what Trump requests, that's another $250 million in an afternoon. I mean, guys, I don't know what it would take for you to realize that this is an all hands on deck drill. And, when all hands are needed on deck, nobody rests and nobody's got behind. All hands on deck. We need you. So canvas, call, join your local Democratic club. If you can, pick a politician, and maybe even a $5 monthly recurring donation, or the Democratic Club, or the Democrats of California. The other side has all the money in the world and then some. I mean, we have some vague idea what the Russian oligarchs were worth, and similarly, we have an idea what the American oligarchs are worth. And they'd be really smart just to pay it and move on. But for whatever reason, billionaires are a little touchy with money. I guess I'm just the opposite of that. As long as I have enough, I'm okay. I don't need, God knows what to be happy. The only thing I need to be happy is listeners to call in to Democracy Radio Network, the Abby Kaufman Show, and tell us what's on your mind as we get closer and closer to the primaries. This is, exactly. What do you think? Do you have a prediction for the polls? I think it'll be people with guns around. And I'm going to tell you, if there are guns around the polls, America has really lost. We were the country that was founded on the principle that it was better to let 100 guilty people go free than to put one innocent man in prison. Nowadays, we consider the one innocent man just a cost of doing business. Just throw his ass in jail too. We don't care. And it's that kind of degradation and humiliation that Trump specializes in, which is why everybody, and I'm going to use a nice word, why everybody dislikes him so. I'd like to think he has some idea, but if he gets garbage information in, then he puts garbage information out. And it seems like from what's been going on, that that's exactly the case. And down to a T. So I said, with that in mind, give us a call, 949-629-3820, and let me know what you think. What's going on in your state if you're not in California. Are you in, how about this? Anybody come from Georgetown, DC, the school? No, no, nobody in Georgetown. Oh, that's a little hard to believe, but hey, you guys actually study? Yeah, just kidding. Georgetown is one of the schools that really does deserve more credit than anybody knows. People know it's a good school. People know it's a political school. But what they don't know about Georgetown is the absolute depth of faculty available in DC. I mean, you can have the chief negotiator on the Israel crisis, teaching crisis management. I mean, there's lots of really smart people in DC, or there were. I'm convinced they've been drawn down a lot by Trump, Musk, Doge, and whatever idiots they can get with chainsaws. And I swear, I really hope I can, I can see those sorts of images being used in the midterm ads. And guys, the sooner we get them up, the sooner we get to frame the issue. And the issue is squarely Donald Trump's competency. You can see how well this whole inflation prediction, tariff prediction, I mean, like I said, the guy's just incapable of being right, and he's also incapable of admitting he's wrong. I mean, that just seems like the kind of turbulence that we're actually seeing in the White House. The White House used to be a little different. I'd spent a little time in D.C., and way back then, you could walk the halls of Congress and stop in and chat with whoever it was. And matter of fact, my granddad came out to visit one time, and I was living on Capitol Hill, and we went over to see Jim Edwards, Secretary of the Department of Energy. He was the oral surgeon from Charleston, South Carolina. In the old days, you could just go knock on the door and, is Dr. Edwards busy? And, he'd come out. Albert, Norman, how you doing? Come on in, These days it's security. It's just a different ball game. And I'm not all the time crazy about going backwards. I tell people I may go in reverse, but I never go backwards. But G, that's not what G sees. That's not what the rest of the world sees. The rest of the world sees America declining. And they're not going to stop it. I mean, they'd love to accelerate a little bit, but you can rest assured they are just eating this up day and night. And at the end of the day, after Trump's term is over, what do you think? You think we'll be better off or worse off? We'll clearly be poor just because some of it steals so much. But what kind of legacy is he going to leave? The legacy of being a dog who wants to pee on everything to mark his territory? I think that's probably going to be his legacy. He wants to change D.C. into Trump world. And there's a reason it's not prohibited, and that's because nobody can conceive of anybody doing that until now. The guy just breaks norms. And, everybody loves a rebel to some degree. But at some point, when it's not productive, you put it on one side. And like I said, Trump only sees problems as nails. And the reason he sees every problem as a nail is because the only tool he knows how to use is a hammer. He just only knows coercion. He doesn't know negotiation. He doesn't know discussion. He doesn't know any of that. And when you don't know stuff like that, that just takes away an avenue to resolve the issue. But, the only issue relative to Donald Trump is how much is he worth? I've heard he and the kids say stuff like they want to be the wealthiest family on earth. And, he didn't say they want to earn it or make it. If these guys stole it, it'd be fine too. The end justifies the means. If we are the wealthiest family on earth, then it must be because we should have all the stuff. The perversity of religion is just staggering. I don't you keep waiting for somebody just to erupt in flames when they say stuff like that. But we can only hope that's all on the come. And it's about 10 minutes to 2 of the Democracy Radio Network, Abby Kaufman Show. Give us a call, 949-629-3820, and let us know what you see on the horizon. Do you see anything good coming of this? I'm a little hard pressed. I don't. Iran's been around for a long time. You can, and until you nuke the place and make it completely uninhabitable, it will be habitable to some degree. I mean, some idiot will stay there, and the idiots or the inmates that are running the asylum from the Trump administration clearly are motivated by a desire to please Trump instead of a desire to do good work. I mean, isn't that how things went traditionally? You got hired, and if you proved yourself through good work, you'd have a job. But apparently, there's so many things I don't get about this world. Let's see. Let me double check my kind of notes here, make sure we didn't miss anything terribly crucial. Let's see. China fight Friedman. I pretty much hit all the high points, but I'm going to tell you that business section headline from the Times is Xi views Trump's America as a sinking whatever, decaying whatever. Though they have every reason to gloat. Trump's doing it for them. Now, I've always wondered why. I think there's some, what the Soviets would call compromise, some compromising evidence held by somebody, whether it's Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein or whoever else, that there are pictures or maybe even films of Trump probably in a compromising position with a woman who's obviously compromised. And in that kind of a world where you can kind of whisk around in jets, where women get whisked around in jets, it's no secret why. It's not because they're such good cooks. You know what I mean? Their specialties don't involve the kitchen, or at least not in a traditional way. It's just time for people to cut and run from Trump and the Republicans. And like I say, if the Democrats win big in 2026 and 2028, of course, we may not see a Republican president for 50 years. And let's say it may take that long to dig out of the hole that Trump put us in. I can't say the hole that we're in because we were put here. And I honestly feel that the reason we were put here is Trump doesn't feel like just a few people screwed him. He doesn't feel like it was just Jack Smith or Jim Comey. You know who he thinks is responsible for making his life miserable? He thinks the United States is responsible. And he wants the United States to pay $10 billion. How does that grab you? Just out of curiosity, can you afford to fill up your gas tank? Can you afford to go grocery shopping? Can you afford a pizza? Well, maybe Trump will buy you one with his $10 billion that he embezzled. And we both know that's not going to happen because he was found, negligent or guilty of misusing his position of managing a trust in New York. Let's see, I forgot what the deal was with him. But again, it's just, you can rest assured that if Trump's involved, that you can substitute the word weasel for the name Trump and get the same general thought process. But guys, I really want you to start thinking through all this. And I want you to, one thing I want to leave on is there are two primary ways to make a decision. You can either make it with your heart based on your emotions, or you can make a decision with your head and base it on the facts and on the evidence. And I'm going to submit to you that the better way is facts and evidence. Why? Because they're verifiable. Because they reinforce somebody's truth-telling capability. I just don't think you'd have that same problem with that orange-tinged subhuman being in the White House. Ladies and gentlemen, it's closing in on 2:00, and I think I'm going to call it a day around 2. My voice usually goes about 2 hours into it, and I'm just kind of curious what might be going on. I may have to take a ride up to the music store and have my guitar looked at. I've got an old Japanese Brazilian rosewood guitar, and I've been and one of the tuning keys was stripped, so it doesn't tune. So I had a choice of either spending money on it and maybe drilling holes, or getting another acoustic guitar to play. And there's a thing in Newport that people around here try to live by, and it only helps when when people are fairly well off. And the thought in Newport is never subtract, always add. Always add to your assets, never subtract from your assets. And if I could add my assets, I might wind up keeping both guitars, but we might ought to take a drive on up to the music guy and see what's going on, just for the hay of it. Even though I hate to take that kind of drive at $7 a gallon, but we just might have to, ladies and gentlemen. Or I could wait till the weekend, but that just might be worse. So anyway, it is 1:57 Pacific time, and I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it all up today. It's been a really fun 2 hours, and I wish my voice would last longer and we could do it more. But it's about 2 hours is just about all I'm good for right now. We'll try to build up to 3. But in the meantime, we appreciate everybody listening and watching, and we appreciate the support everybody gives us. And the best I can do is to tell everyone to have a happy Thursday. Take care, stay well, and think good thoughts.